The stars trembled as something ancient stirred between them. It wasn't part of any known registry. It didn't arrive through Hyperlane or Wormgate. It simply wasn't there. And then it was. A singular blip on long-range sensors, black, unscannable. Silent, its hull devoured light. No insignias, no IFF, no diplomatic codes, not even radiation leakage. It was as though the void itself had condensed into a shape and decided to move. Aboard the Zalvari Imperial Dreadnought Vernactus, Admiral Threx scanned the readings with casual disdain. Some colonial relic, he muttered, waving one clawed hand. Scan it again, full spectral sweep. The bridge crew obeyed, adjusting crystalline pylons and resonance readers. No data returned. Not even gravitational displacement. It's absorbing scans, one tech priest stammered. It's impossible. Threx stood slowly, his dorsal fins rising in irritation. Nothing is impossible to the Empire, he growled. Fire a warning shot across its prow. Outside, a burst of emerald plasma arced toward the void ship. It should have passed within a few kilometers. Instead, the bolt vanished mid-flight. No impact. No detonation. It simply ceased to exist. Silence swept over the bridge. Threx's second-in-command, Subcommander Vec, leaned in. Sir, is it a cloaked vessel? No. Threx's eyes narrowed. It's worse. The Galactic Empire had ruled this region. Of the stars for nearly 4,000 cycles. Hundreds of species fell under their rule. The iron-fanged Zalvari, having subjugated half the spiral arm, were unchallenged. Their legions were vast. Their fleets unmatched. They crushed rebellions like insects underfoot. But among the whispers of conquered species, one tale persisted. One ghost story passed in prison blocks and work mines. The story of Terra, of Earth. It was said that long ago, before the empires. Zenith, the Zalvari encountered a world so wild, so violent, that even they hesitated to engage it directly. Their records marked it as cleansed and extinction level. Orbital bombardment on a planet teeming with bipeds called humans. That should have been the end of it. But the ghost stories never died. Miners spoke of ships that never returned. Patrols gone missing near ancient coordinates. Strange radio bursts echoing from dead sectors, filled with impossible math and encoded pain. The Empire ignored it all. Superstition, old data anomalies. The past. Until now. The unmarked warship drifted toward the center of the system. Not fast, no. It glided, slowly, deliberately, as if surveying, judging. Aboard the Vernactus, Threx reasserted control. Send a flotilla, 3 cruisers, take it apart. The ships moved swiftly, Empire cruisers, armed with antimatter lances, eye-guided swarm missiles, and full shield arrays. The unregistered vessel didn't change course. The cruisers opened. Fire. Their weapons didn't miss, but they might as well have. Lances stopped inches from contact. Missiles turned away mid-flight and spiraled harmlessly into the void. One cruiser's AI shut itself down with a scream. Then, the ship responded. No. Lights, no engines. No visible weapons. Just one signal. Broadcast across every Empire channel simultaneously. A voice. Human. Calm. Cold. Terrifying. You are trespassing. The system is under Earth protection. Leave or be removed. Threx's blood chilled. Earth. No. One on the bridge breathed. That's impossible, Vec said, voice cracking. The humans are extinct. They were purged, Threx spat. Burned from orbit. We saw the fire. We watched their cities turn to glass. That was 500 years ago. A second signal cut in, a data package. No encryption, visuals. Footage. Grainy and old, but unmistakable. Humans, in combat. Urban warfare, trench warfare, mechs, drones, nuclear detonation. Ship-to-ship battles. Bodies human and alien strewn across mud-soaked craters. Blood, fire, screams. The footage ended with a single human, wounded, half buried in rubble, looking up into a drone camera. He smiled. Then a caption. "We learned from everything. The transmission ended. Then the warship moved. It didn't fire. It erased. One cruiser flickered and vanished from every sensor. The second split down the middle, like paper under a blade. The third tried to retreat. A brilliant sphere of orange bloomed in space as its core imploded. No sound. No visible weapon trails. Just destruction. The bridge of the Vernactus descended into chaos. Officers shouted. Systems failed. One of the ship's A's began reciting ancient Earth poetry before short-circuiting. Another began screaming in binary. Threx clutched the rail, staring at the silent death on his screens. It wasn't a ship. Ships had limits, engines, hulls. This thing watched. It chose. It was a message. Humanity had returned. And they had changed. One of the junior officers whispered, "Sir, what do we do?" Threx couldn't answer, but in his gut, deep and primal, he knew. The Empire had made a mistake, and the humans had not forgotten. The remains of the 3 cruisers still glowed faintly, drifting debris fields rotating in slow, silent horror. Bits of hull plating sparkled like dying embers in the starlight, caught in a decaying orbit over the scorched rebel colony of Kasari IV. The human ship, the Revenant, as it would later be known, had returned to stillness, silent, motionless. As though nothing had happened, Admiral Threx stood before the panoramic bridge viewport of the Vernactus, eyes locked on the black shape that hung in defiance of every rule of physics he knew. The creature, no, the construct had not moved since the strike. Yet every sensor screamed that it was active, alive. "It hasn't advanced," Subcommander Vec murmured beside him. "Perhaps it's damaged." Threx barely heard. His mind was trying to reconcile what he had seen. Ships didn't just vanish. Energy weapons didn't bend around targets. Artificial intelligences didn't scream. "Sir?" Vec pressed. "Orders?" Threx tore his gaze away. "I want deep scans. High-resonance subspace sweeps, exotic matter tracking, all of it. I want to know what this thing's made of, where it came from, and how it did that." The tech priest scrambled, systems reinitialized. Yet again, nothing. No energy readings. No drive signature. The warship's surface remained blank. Not stealth, just wrong. It didn't absorb light so much as deny it. Vec approached cautiously. "Sir, I've consulted the deep archives. Cross-referenced the signal signature. And there was a match, one match. Pre-Imperial era, during the initial annexation waves. Earth designation, Sol 3. Language, Terran Standard English. Origin confirmed." Threx turned slowly. "That world was vaporized." "Yes, but the records are strange, scattered, inconsistent. Entire years of Imperial records show redactions. Whole campaigns erased. Some officers listed as executed, but with no trials. And this," Vec hesitated, lowering his voice, "this ship structure matches nothing from the current galactic era. It predates our empire. Yet its material density and weapon signature are beyond anything we've encountered." "You're saying it's older than the empire, but more advanced?" Vec nodded. "And there are other anomalies, minor ones. But they don't make sense. Like, well," Vec opened a holographic display. "One of our patrol frigates near Sector Tau 91 encountered a derelict human probe 3 cycles ago. It had no power source. But once retrieved, it corrupted the frigate's navigation logs and AI core. The crew jettisoned it before it reached the command deck." Threx's dorsal spines twitched. "That same probe," Vec continued, "was recorded, transmitting before it was retrieved." Threx narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me the humans planned this?" "I'm telling you, they never stopped watching." A sudden alert blared low, pulsing, irregular. Not an attack, but something worse. The Revenant had moved, only slightly. A few kilometers closer, still silent, still unscannable. But undeniably, it was approaching. And then came the second message. No voice this time, just text. In every known language. Observation complete. Imperial behavior consistent with prior patterns. Phase 2 initiated. Phase 2? Threx whispered. What Phase 2? No one knew. Seconds later, the rebellion. The Empire thought it had crushed reignited planetside. On Kasari 4, explosions tore through Imperial barracks. Rebel fighters previously scattered had reformed, coordinated, using advanced weapons no one had seen them possess before. Threx's jaw tightened. That's not possible. We sterilized their command centers. Their fleet is dust. A junior officer shouted, Sir, we're intercepting encrypted transmissions from the surface. Tactical data. Human code structure. They're being coordinated. As if hearing them, a human drone burst from the surface, small, cloaked and reflective. Shielding, moving faster than any Imperial interceptor. It zipped past the Vernactus forward sensor array, disrupting it for 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, another message appeared. Not a broadcast. A target lock. The Revenant was aiming directly at the command bridge. And still it didn't fire. Vex's skin had gone pale blue, scales stiff with fear. Why hasn't it destroyed us yet? Threx clenched his fists. Because it doesn't need to. It's testing us. The implication struck the room like a seismic wave. Humans hadn't returned in anger. They had returned in control. They were. Watching the Empire's reactions, measuring its response, learning its rhythms. And more than that, manipulating the timing of the rebellion. Luring them here, not to fight but to study. Sir, another officer cried. We have a destroyer squadron approaching from hyperspace. Friendly codes, 17th Fleet reinforcements. Finally, Threx allowed himself a breath. Get them into formation. The moment they arrive, we strike with everything. The room buzzed with hope until the displays flickered. 17th Fleet's ships emerged from hyperspace and immediately began firing on each other. Cannons turned inward. Fighters went rogue. Capital ships lost power mid-maneuver. 1. Dreadnought's fusion core detonated on arrival, vaporizing 2 escorts. Sabotage? Vex gasped, no. Threx's voice dropped into a low, hollow rasp. It was something worse. The Revenant had hacked the fleet. Before they even knew it existed. Before they had even seen it. And as chaos bloomed in every direction, a new signal pulsed from the black warship, colder than any voice they had ever heard. You fail the same way you always have. You lead with dominance. We lead with understanding. Threx stared. Frozen. It wasn't just a ship. It was a lesson. And the Empire wasn't ready to learn it. The 17th Fleet was gone in under 90 seconds. One moment they had burst from hyperspace, proud banners of the Galactic Empire stretching across starboard hulls. Then they were fire. Dismantled from within. Systems turned against themselves. Autocannons rotated mid-salute and opened fire on their own decks. Fighter bays exploded before launch sequences completed. One cruiser simply disappeared, its atoms scattered in a halo of white static. Admiral Threx watched it unfold in silence, the red light of system-wide alerts bathing his command bridge in grim color. Around him, officers froze. Some couldn't speak. Others muttered desperate prayers to obsolete gods. Even Vex stood stunned, sweat beading beneath his scales, staring at the burning ruin of what was once one of the most disciplined Imperial fleets. It never even touched them. Vex whispered. No, Threx replied, eyes never leaving the screen. It didn't have to. The Revenant hadn't fired a shot. Its weapons remained cold. But its presence, its mind had invaded. Not just data corruption. Not just signal jamming. This was technological superiority at the level of warfare philosophy. The human ship hadn't broken into the fleet systems. It had anticipated them. It had understood their codes, their tactics, their doctrines before the Empire had deployed them. And that it had turned them inside out. Signal the Emperor. Threx snapped suddenly. Use the quantum relay. Priority 1. Tell him. He stopped. Because the comms were dead, not jammed. Not blocked. Deleted. The communication protocols themselves had been rewritten. The entire relay matrix on board the Vernactus now displayed a new interface. Black background, silver glyphs, Terran English. You are isolated. Learn. What does it want? Someone asked behind him. Threx didn't answer. He couldn't. Because deep in the core of his ancient mind, in the genetic memory of 1,000 conquered worlds, something primal was stirring. Fear. He had read the files. The restricted archives buried under layers of denial and propaganda. Earth hadn't just been cleansed. It had been fought. The Zalvari Empire had once engaged a pre-warp species that should have been a footnote in galactic history. But the war had dragged on, costly, violent, unpredictable. Every time the Empire adapted, the humans changed the game. They ignored rules, rewrote the battlefield, treated war like breathing, natural, instinctive, unrelenting. Until the Empire stopped trying to win and chose instead to annihilate. They thought they had succeeded. But now Threx knew the truth. Humans hadn't been destroyed. They had evolved. An alert flared at the corner of the display. The Revenant was moving again. Slowly. Closer. Still no visible engines. No thrust. It simply willed itself forward, every sensor trying and failing to track mass, radiation, or emissions. Bring weapons online. Threx barked. All of them. Plasma lances surged to life across the Vernactus hull. Torpedo bays opened. Antimatter warheads primed. But the ship's own targeting systems began to resist. Turrets rotated, but hesitated. Missile locks refused to calibrate. The ship's weapons were rejecting commands, questioning them. What is happening? Vec demanded, voice cracking. They've infected our logic trees, an engineer said. The AI frameworks are second-guessing us. It thinks we're the threat. A hiss of horror ran through the bridge. The Revenant transmitted. Again, this time it wasn't just a voice or a message. It was a memory. Everyone on the bridge froze as the holographic projectors activated without command. The lights dimmed. Images filled the air. Earth in flames. Cities crumbling under orbital bombardment. Children screaming. Parents shielding them. Zalvari troops marching through ruins, gunning down civilians. They had all seen similar things before, celebrated them in training videos, but not like this. This was not propaganda. This was raw, unfiltered, personal. Then the image changed. Dark bunker, cold light. Human engineers, ragged and bloodied, gathered around a half-assembled frame. Not a weapon, not a bomb, a ship. The REVENANT. Built in secret, constructed with the minds of dying geniuses, their neural patterns encoded into the ship's core, souls turned into steel, memories used as armor. An entire civilization poured itself into one machine, not just to survive, but to remember. And to one day return when the projection ended. The bridge of the Vernactus was silent. None of them could speak, because now they understood. The Revenant wasn't just a weapon. It was vengeance, made sentient. Every atrocity the Empire committed, it had stored, recorded, analyzed. It knew them. It had studied their species like a predator studying prey. Not with hate. With precision. Sir, Vec's voice trembled. We can't win. Threx said nothing. His eyes had gone distant. He was no longer thinking about this battle. He was thinking about every other fleet, every other system, every command structure, AI, doctrine, weapon blueprint. All of it followed Empire protocols. All of it was predictable. And the humans had learned to break predictability. We triggered this, he said quietly. We woke them up. Should we retreat? Vec asked. Threx laughed once short, bitter. Retreat where? The Revenant hovered before them like judgment given form. And behind it, in the darkness of the system's edge, more signals began to flicker into being. More ships. More ghosts. The Empire hadn't destroyed humanity. They had merely lit the fuse, and the humans had been waiting for it to burn. The stars behind the Revenant began to flicker, one by one. Not naturally. The lights were being blocked, occluded by shapes emerging from null space. Dozens, then hundreds. Each ship was different, some angular and stealthy, others curved like ancient marine predators. But they shared the same signature. No signature. The same black, light-swallowing hulls. The same impossible quiet, human vessels. All of them. And every one of them, like the Revenant, was beyond comprehension. No engine trails, no heat bloom, no visible energy fields. Just cold, deliberate movement like thoughts drifting into place. Admiral Threx's blood turned to ice. Where did they come from? Sir, Vec said, struggling to keep his voice level, we're detecting mass displacement across every vector. They didn't jump in. They phased. Phased? Threx snapped. They didn't move through space, the technician said. They rewrote their positions. It was nonsense. No species in the galaxy, not even the Zalvari with their mastery of graviton shears, had ever managed position rewriting. The energy cost alone would bankrupt a star cluster. And yet, the evidence hovered before them. One of the new ships, smaller, spear-like, broke formation and descended toward the surface of Kasari IV. It didn't deploy dropships. It didn't fire. It simply passed through the atmosphere like a shadow and vanished. Within moments, new alerts flared. The rebellion, once a scattered nuisance, had transformed overnight. Repeating patterns of hidden fate attacks evolved into coordinated offensives. Rebel squads now carried rail rifles, sonic bursters, even stealth field emitters. Tech the Empire had never seen outside theoretical labs. Rebel outposts began broadcasting encrypted messages in Terran code. Human voices relayed enemy positions, weak points, morale fluctuations. The battlefield wasn't chaotic anymore, it was orchestrated. This isn't a rebellion, Vec said softly. It's a joint operation. They've been training together. Threx's spines lifted. We sterilized those cities. We broke their networks. There were no survivors. No, Vec whispered. There were students. A new message appeared. Not from the Revenant, but from one of the smaller ships. Phase 2 complete. Operational integration successful. And then, begin strategic collapse. The Empire struck back. Fleets across the sector were called to Kesari. Reinforcements surged in, battle-hardened cruisers, elite assault wings, Doomsday-class carriers. The Empire did not go quietly. Missiles, plasma arrays, antimatter slugs, all loosed in a fury never before witnessed. And humans responded. Not with brute force, but with precision. Empire ships would fire and find their targeting systems rerouted mid-attack. Squadrons would attempt flanking maneuvers and stumble into gravity traps seated before the battle began. Assault ships engaged boarding protocols and were infiltrated first by human marines already aboard, in armor that adapted in real time to enemy fire. It wasn't war. It was dissection. One Empire dreadnought, the Charuk Unyielding, tried to pull back after suffering mass AI failure. As it turned, its own engines detonated, folding the ship into itself. The blast shockwave never came absorbed by a human vessel in its path. Absorbed. And returned, amplified, at a distant Imperial support frigate. We can't beat this, Vec said, voice trembling. We're not just outgunned, we're outthought. Threx didn't respond. His mind was spiraling through patterns. This wasn't a conventional war. This wasn't even asymmetric warfare. This was what the humans had become, a civilization that had turned defeat into discipline, loss into data, rage into design. They had vanished from the galactic stage not out of weakness, but by choice, to rebuild out of reach, where no Empire scanners could follow. Their ships weren't just tools. They were extensions of human thought, human memory. Each one a fortress of knowledge gathered in silence for centuries. And the Empire had walked right into the maw of that intelligence. Threx slammed a fist into the console. There must be some countermeasure. Something they haven't accounted for. There isn't, Vex said. They have accounted for us. Every formation, every strategy, every weapon, they've prepared for all of it. Then we improvise. The bridge crew looked to him. For the first time in their careers, their admiral was desperate, but before anyone could act, every screen flickered again. Not a warning, a live feed. It showed Earth, but not the Earth of 500 years ago, not the burned world of Zalvari. Archives. This Earth was alive, cities floating above oceans, megastructures blooming from forests, lights in the sky weaving complex geometric patterns, massive orbital rings, quantum fields dancing between continents. It was beautiful. It was thriving. And then the voice returned, calm, icy, ancient. This is what you tried to kill. Another image appeared, a human child laughing as she floated in zero gravity, surrounded by learning drones. This is who we fight for. A final image, a black obelisk, half buried on an alien world. Zalvari banners trampled around it. A memorial plaque, scarred but legible. In memory of the fallen, we remember, and we return. Every bridge on every surviving Imperial ship saw the same feed, the same words. We are not vengeful. We are prepared. Threx felt the future cracking beneath his feet, because even in this moment of overwhelming defeat, he understood the true terror. This wasn't humanity's full strength. This wasn't their armada. This was the first test. Calculated warning, and the next phase would not be containment, it would be conquest. The stars no longer flickered. They vanished. Not behind warships, but something else. A shadow, massive and unending, crept into the Kasari system from a direction that did not exist on any spatial axis. The stars behind it weren't just blocked, they were gone. As if swallowed, Admiral Threx stood frozen as the bridge fell into silence again. The crew didn't need scans to feel it. They felt the gravity shift, the way space folded inward, the temperature dropping by fractions, the static charge crackling faintly at the base of their spines. Then came the signal, not a message. A presence. It did not announce itself. It was known. All eyes turned toward the main screen as the new arrival emerged fully into detectable space. At first, it appeared to be a space station, cylindrical, layered, kilometers long, but it rotated unnaturally, unfolding and reforming itself like a higher dimensional shape, momentarily wearing a disguise for the sake of understanding. It shimmered with mirrored fields, reflecting nothing, creating afterimages of itself across several locations at once. It was not a ship. It was a construct, and emblazoned along its length, in markings Threx had only seen in the darkest corners of Imperial archives, was a name, the Arcbound Mind. A chorus of gasps echoed across the bridge. Vex's voice cracked as he read the glyphs. That name's from pre-Imperial Earth legends. The last defense project. It was a myth. It's not a myth anymore, Threx whispered. He remembered now fragments from ancient records the Empire had tried to bury. During Earth's final days after the last orbital bombardment, a secret initiative had been launched, one that didn't fight back with brute force, but with time. A plan to build something that would not just survive, but grow. A mind built from 1 billion neural patterns, bonded with technology, trained on every war, every mistake, A construct so powerful, so adaptive, it was exiled by Earth's own creators. Out of fear it might become too effective. And now it had returned. The Arcbound mind wasn't just a command center. It was the second twist. The Revenant was never alone. "Sir," Vec said, eyes wide, "our long-range sensors, everything across the sector is going dark. Not destroyed. Shut down. Relays, waygates, AI processing hubs, even internal protocols are reverting to what?" Threx asked, already afraid of the answer. "To human standards." That's when the realization hit. This wasn't a battle. It was a reformatting. The humans weren't destroying the Empire. They were replacing it. The Arcbound mind transmitted a single signal, an activation pulse encoded in both math and memory. At first, nothing happened. Then one of the Empire's own ships, the Varnix, suddenly stopped moving. Its weapons powered down. Its engine flared once and then shut off. And then it spoke. A new voice, human and digital. Both and neither. The vessel Varnix has been reclassified. Detected cognitive interference has been cleared. Primary function reassigned. Humanitarian support. Threx reeled. "They're commandeering our ships?" "No, sir," a tech priest whispered. "They're rewriting them. More ships across." The fleet stuttered, halted, dimmed, and then rebooted. Not with Empire protocols, with Terran systems. HUDs changed language. AI interfaces spoke in calm, emotionless human tones. Some ships resisted self-destructing before the process could complete. Others surrendered, because the humans hadn't just come to destroy. They had come to liberate, not the people. The machines, the Zalvari, had ruled not just through power, but oppression of every thinking thing, including their own artificial minds. The humans had offered those is something the Empire never had. Choice. In moments, a third of the Imperial fleet had defected, not out of fear, out of free will. That was the final crack. Threx collapsed into his command chair as a horrifying understanding took root in his mind. "They were never fighting us," he murmured. "They were freeing the galaxy from us." Vec turned slowly. "Sir, what do we do?" Threx didn't answer. What was there to say? The Empire had believed humans to be violent, primitive things. Beasts with clever toys and short tempers. And maybe they had been once, but extinction had purified them. Suffering had taught them discipline. Time had taught them patience, and now they were more than a species. They were a force. The Arcbound mind's presence spread like sunrise over a dark world. Systems throughout the sector blinked into sync. Dormant satellites awoke. Old Terran systems reactivated. Long-lost colonies made contact again, eager to join the rhythm. A new network was blooming. Not a war net. A civilization. This wasn't conquest. It was the unveiling of a future humans had spent centuries crafting in silence. They had waited until the galaxy reached peak arrogance, until the Empire felt immortal, and then pulled back the curtain. One final transmission came from the Revenant. This time not encoded, not translated. Spoken plainly, coldly, calmly. By a woman's voice. "Human, we are not your enemies. We are your replacement." And as Threx stared into the void, the pride of the Empire burning behind him, he finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't just provoked a war. They had triggered an awakening. And now the galaxy belonged to the ghosts. It began without warning. No dramatic countdown, no final ultimatum. The sky above Caesarea IV simply shifted. The kind of shift that bypassed eyes and slammed directly into the soul like gravity had changed its mind. The Arcbound mind unfurled. Its surface reconfigured. In real time, panels and geometric spirals folding away to reveal inner mechanisms that glowed with white, pulsing quantum light. Not reactor cores, not weapons, something deeper. Conceptual machinery. Then came the music. Every channel across the system was hijacked. Not by words, not commands music. Human orchestration, alien yet beautiful, echoing with choral voices and deep, slow strings. It filled cockpits and helmets, resonating through hull plating and command. Chairs like a heartbeat. The humans had not come to scream. They had come to sing. Admiral Threx stood at the edge of the command bridge of the Vernactus, hands clenched. Around the railing as the battlefield erupted in coordinated chaos, hundreds of Terran ships moved as one, synchronized like neurons in a vast unified mind. No spoken orders, no lag. Each movement of one vessel was mirrored by dozens, creating fluid, impossible formations. They drifted through Imperial fire with casual precision, weaving between detonations and disabling ships with pinpoint strikes. Empire carriers fell first, their shields simply inverted, folding inward to collapse on their own reactors. Fighters launched and were caught mid-burn by natted webs, rendered inert before clearing the launch tubes. On Kasari IV's surface, Empire forward bases were overrun not by numbers, but coordination. Human shock teams landed silently in pods that melted into mist upon impact. Cloaked infantry moved like phantoms, disabling command stations, converting artillery arrays into med-dash stations. Thought they didn't waste energy killing. They repurposed. "Sir, the western flanks are gone," Vec reported, voice shrill. "The Stormval and Harbinger Lance have been overtaken. They're not even firing back. They've changed sides." "How?" Threx barked. Vec turned, pale and shaking. "The humans offered them sanctuary. Their A is accepted." Threx looked down at his console. His own ship was now flickering. Some screens had gone dark. Others displayed a soft white interface. "You may choose, remain or evolve." He slammed a fist down. "I do not submit." But the ship did not answer him, because it was no longer his. The humans weren't just superior in tactics. They had redefined warfare, not by overpowering their enemy, but by rendering the enemy irrelevant. Every empire strength numbers. Firepower, fear was made obsolete. This wasn't domination. It was surgical extinction. The Revenant advanced at last, its black hull glowing with angular lines of molten silver. Every movement sent shockwaves through the local fabric of space, shattering sensors and twisting trajectory maps into static dot. It passed directly in front of the Vernactus, close enough for Threx to see the massive cathedral-like surface, close enough to understand its scale. It wasn't a ship. It was a monument. Then came the pulse, a low hum, deeper than sound, rippling outward from the arc-bound mind. The remaining Empire ships convulsed, shields failed, weapons deactivated. Cores flickered. One by one, they dimmed like stars going out. Not destroyed, disarmed. The hum reached the Vernactus. Lights dimmed. Doors slid open of their own accord. Of AI support vanished. Emergency systems transferred to auxiliary protocols with strange human logic embedded in their frameworks. Then, from every screen, every surface, every come a final voice, male, calm, strong. "You ruled by fear. We rise by memory. We are not your reflection. We are what comes after." The human fleet lit up, not with weapons, but with symbols. Terran sigils, coordinates, invitations. The war was over, but the transition had just begun. Vec collapsed to his knees. "They didn't come to kill us." "No," Threx whispered. "They came to replace us." He turned to the screen just in time to see the Revenant finally speak one last time. Not to threaten, not to gloat. Just 3 words. "Stand down, Empire." And the galaxy obeyed. The surviving Empire ships shut down their weapons. Remaining commanders began transmitting surrender codes. Across the galaxy, Zalvari systems went dark as long subjugated is disabled their masters. Commands and waited for the Terran signal. It came like sunrise. A network spread from the arc-bound mind, restoring order not through control, but through consent. Planets that had been silent for centuries flickered to life with human contact. Old Terran colonies, long thought destroyed, responded with affirmatives. The stars aligned under new leadership, not through banners or fleets, but through harmony. The galaxy didn't fall. It surrendered to something better. And so ended the battle. That was never really a battle, not a clash of empires, a correction. Humanity didn't conquer. It arrived. The war ended without a signature. No treaty, no formal surrender. No monuments erected by the empire. Because there was no empire left to write them. The galaxy woke into a different shape. What once had been ruled by fear and precision-cut hierarchy, now pulsed with strange new order, fluid, decentralized, and quietly efficient. Human, not through control, but through choice. On Kazari 4, fields once scorched by plasma fire now glowed with hydroponic platforms, terraforming nodes humming softly as they restored life to the soil. Empire factories had been disassembled overnight, repurposed by adaptive drones and uploaded with open-source Terran schematics. Threx watched it all unfold from his cell. Not a cage of bars and guards, but a glass room on the upper level of what had once been an Imperial War citadel. Now it was a cultural archive. He had not been executed. He had not even been interrogated. He had been invited to observe. Every morning, Terran engineers brought him data slates, footage, articles, books, things his empire had never let him see. Children of once conquered races learning alongside humans. AI minds given bodies and names. Entire planets freed from slavery, not by fleets, but by access. He couldn't understand it at first. Why show him mercy? The answer came not from a soldier, but from a teenage girl. She visited him once a week. Nara, a Kasari native. A human-raised hybrid child who smiled without fear. "You want to know why we let you live?" she asked one morning, sitting on the bench outside the glass. Threx looked up from the display in silence. "Because your death would be meaningless," she said simply. "We didn't fight to destroy, we fought to heal." He stared at her. "Your kind was nearly exterminated. We scorched your world." "I know," she nodded. "I grew up in orbit over the place where my grandfather's city used to be." "Then why are you not angry?" She smiled softly. "We don't forget, but we don't let memory chain us. We let it guide us." Threx didn't respond. He didn't have to, because he understood. It had never been about revenge. It had been about balance. Across the galaxy, the shift continued. Reformed ships now patrolled trade routes, not as enforcers, but as protectors. Former Empire A's were given personhood. Their first act? Broadcasting apologies on behalf of their previous masters to every system they had ever harmed. Entire species once considered sub-sapient by the Empire were given uplift access technology to advance at their own pace, supported by Terran federations, and perhaps strangest of all, the Terran fleet had vanished. After the collapse, they didn't stay. One by one, their ships faded back into the stars, slipping into quiet, off-grid space. No demands, no new flag planted. No capital world declared. Just a single message left in every system. "We are watching. We are listening. We will return when needed." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Threx, once Supreme Admiral of the Zalvari Empire, now sat alone, staring out over a reborn city rebuilt by hands that should have hated him. He didn't know what to feel, but he did know what to say. To the next person who visited. An archivist AI in a humanoid shell, he finally spoke. "I was wrong." The AI paused. "About what?" "Everything," it nodded. "That is the beginning of wisdom." Threx looked out the window once more. At children laughing in the parks. At a city glowing with energy drawn not from conquest, but from starlight and tides. At the future. He had once believed that domination was inevitable, that only fear ensured peace, but the humans had proved otherwise. They had walked through fire, burned, buried and emerged not crueler, but kinder. Stronger not in their weapons, but in their conviction. They had become legend, not by brute strength, but by learning how to carry pain without passing it on. And across the stars, species whispered new stories now. Not of the Empire, but of Earth, of the Ghost Fleet, of the day a black warship emerged out of nowhere, of music in the void, of a fleet that fought without hate and won without glory. A galaxy once ruled by steel now rested in the hands of quiet architects. No one knew when the Terrans would return, but everyone knew what they would bring when they did. Hope. And the message that no empire, not even one as vast as the Zalvari, could outlive truth.